I never meant to open that envelope. Thursday morning, 8:47 a.m. I was sorting mail in the back office of the Whitmore mansion like I'd done 1,000 times before. 8 years working in this house, and I knew the routine by heart. Mr. Thompson's legal correspondence goes on the left, personal mail on the mahogany desk, medical documents in the locked drawer. Simple, safe. But my hands were shaking that morning. Dylan had woken up with a fever at 6 a.m., and I'd spent 2 hours trying to bring it down with cold compresses before Mrs. Stephanie, the current lady of the house, reminded me that the help doesn't get sick days for their children. So there I was, exhausted and worried, when I accidentally tore open the wrong envelope. The letterhead read, Hartford Medical Genetics Laboratory. My first thought was that it belonged to Mrs. Stephanie, maybe another cosmetic procedure she didn't want anyone knowing about. But then I saw the names that made my heart stop. DNA paternity analysis. Dylan Martinez, Richard Whitmore, Jr. 99.9% probability of paternity. The paper slipped from my fingers. 8 years. 8 years of silence, of humiliation, of pretending my son was just the housekeeper's kid, and they knew. They'd always known. Let me take you back to how this all started. I came to Greenwich from Oaxaca in 2017, 26 years old with dreams bigger than the beat-up suitcase I carried. The Whitmores needed a live-in housekeeper, and the agency promised good pay, private room, family atmosphere. What they didn't mention was that family atmosphere meant being treated as invisible. Richard Jr. was different. The eldest son, 28, he actually looked at me when we spoke, asked about my day, brought Dylan, just a baby then, toys from his business trips to New York. For 3 months, we had something real, something that felt like it could become more. Then his father, Charles Whitmore, the patriarch, the man whose oil company money built this mansion, called me into his study. I remember every word. One word about the situation, Rosa, and Immigration and Customs Enforcement gets a very detailed call about your expired visa. Do we understand each other? I understood. I understood that my son would grow up in the servants' quarters, that I'd smile politely while Mrs. Stephanie's friends asked if the help's child was housebroken yet, that Richard Jr. would marry someone from his social circle 2 years later, someone who died in a car accident shortly after, leaving behind grief and a very ambitious widow named Stephanie. But this envelope changed everything, because underneath the paternity test was another document, a transfer authorization for the Whitmore Family Trust to an offshore account, $40 million. Scheduled for signature Monday at 10 a.m. at Thompson & Associates law firm in Stamford. I checked my phone. Thursday, 8:47 a.m. That gave me exactly 72 hours and 13 minutes. My first instinct was panic. They were moving money, Dylan's inheritance, though he didn't know it existed, and once those signatures dried, my son would have nothing, less than nothing. He'd be the help's kid, who never belonged, while $40 million vanished into some Caribbean shell company. But then I remembered something else. 3 months ago, when old Mr. Charles passed away, the doctors said it was heart failure. Though he'd seemed healthy enough the week before, he'd pulled me aside during one of his final lucid moments. His hands, usually so steady during business meetings I'd overheard while cleaning, trembled as he pressed an envelope into mine. Rosa, he'd whispered, his voice barely audible over the medical equipment. If they try anything, if my family shows their true nature after I'm gone, open this. I wasn't always the man they needed me to be, but I can be the man you and Dylan need now. I'd tucked that envelope in the back of my dresser drawer, under the baptism gown my grandmother embroidered for Dylan. 3 months of wondering what secrets a dying man thought important enough to share with his son's housekeeper. Now, staring at documents that would steal my son's birthright in 72 hours, I understood. Charles had known. He'd known what his family would do, what his daughter-in-law, Stephanie, would orchestrate, what lawyers would facilitate, what money would hide. The question was, what could a Mexican housekeeper with an expired visa do about it? I carefully placed both documents back in the envelope, sealed it with steady hands, and walked to my room. Dylan was sleeping. Fever finally broken. his small chest rising and falling with the peaceful breath of someone who trusted his mother to protect him. "Subscribe to find out how Rosa uses these 72 hours, I whispered to myself, almost laughing at the absurdity. But as I opened that drawer and pulled out Charles' envelope, I wasn't laughing anymore. Whatever the old man had left me, proof, evidence, leverage, it was about to become the most important thing I'd ever held. What Charles Whitmore knew that I didn't would either save my son's future or destroy what little security we had left. The seal broke with a soft tear, and everything changed. They thought I was just cleaning, dusting shelves, organizing files, emptying trash bins. For 8 years, the Whitmores watched me move through their mansion like a ghost, present but irrelevant, visible but unseen. What they didn't know is that I was building a case. That Thursday afternoon, after Dylan's fever broke and he finally fell asleep clutching his worn stuffed bear, I locked my bedroom door and pulled out the laptop from the back of my closet. It was hidden under old linens and shoe boxes, a refurbished Dell I'd bought cash at a pawn shop in Stamford 3 years ago. No one in this house knew it existed. I opened the folder labeled Household Accounts. Innocent enough if anyone stumbled across it. But inside were 2,147 photographs, 340 audio recordings, and a spreadsheet with timestamps documenting every threat, every suspicious transaction, every whispered conversation I'd overheard since 2019. The first photo was dated March 15, 2019. A bank statement I'd photographed while dusting Charles's home office, showing a wire transfer of $850,000 to an account in the Cayman Islands. The memo line read, "Consulting fees, S.W. Stephanie Whitmore." I scrolled through the evidence. Screenshots of emails I'd captured when Mrs. Stephanie left her laptop open during her yoga sessions. Photos of documents from the law firm. Thompson always left his briefcase in the foyer, and I had 30 seconds every Tuesday morning while he used the bathroom. Voice recordings from my phone tucked in my apron pocket, activated whenever family meetings got heated. The most damning was from March 14, 2024, just last year. I'd been cleaning the hallway outside the study when I heard Stephanie's voice rise. "We need to make sure that Mexican woman never talks. One call to ICE, and she's gone. The kid goes to foster care, and this problem disappears." Margaret, Charles's sister, had responded, "But what if she has proof?" Proof of what? That my dead husband had an affair with the help? She's undocumented, Margaret. Who's going to believe her? I'd stood frozen, dust cloth trembling in my hand, recording every word. Here's what the Whitmores never knew about me. Before I came to the United States, I was an accountant in Oaxaca. Not a glamorous position. I worked for a small import-export business, tracking invoices and currency exchanges. But I understood numbers. I understood how money moved, where it hid, what patterns meant someone was hiding something. When I started working here, I recognized the signs immediately. Duplicate payments to vendors that didn't exist. Transfers timed perfectly with tax filing deadlines. Shell companies with addresses that matched the Whitmore family attorney's office building. Charles's oil company was profitable, sure, but someone was skimming. Someone was very, very good at making millions vanish. That someone was Stephanie. She'd married Richard Jr. In 2021, a whirlwind romance that raised eyebrows even among Greenwich's social circle. 6 months later, Richard's car went off the road on I-95 during a rainstorm. Brake failure, the police said. Tragic accident, everyone whispered. Stephanie inherited everything as the grieving widow, but I'd seen the maintenance records for that car. I'd photographed them 2 weeks before the accident when Richard asked me to file some paperwork. The brakes had been serviced the day before. Brand new pads, inspected and certified. 2 years later, Charles started showing signs of what doctors called rapid cognitive decline. The man who'd run a multi-million-dollar company for 40 years suddenly couldn't remember meetings, signed documents without reading them, gave Stephanie power of attorney over his medical and financial decisions. Convenient. Very convenient. I closed the laptop and looked at Dylan, sleeping peacefully. He had Richard's eyes, the same warm brown that used to look at me like I mattered, like I was more than just the help. A soft knock on my door made me jump. I shoved the laptop back under the linens. "Rosa?" The voice was familiar. Careful. Marcus, the family's driver. African-American man in his 50s who'd worked here even longer than I had. "You got a minute?" I opened the door a crack. Marcus stood in the hallway, his usually calm expression tight with worry. "I saw you reading something this morning," he said quietly. "Something that looked important. And I saw Mrs. Stephanie watching you." My stomach dropped. "Marcus, I'm not here to cause trouble." He glanced down the hallway, then back at me. "I just want you to know. I see things too. In that car, people forget I'm there. They talk like I'm part of the upholstery." He paused. "Mr. Richard, the son, he was a good man. Always asked about my grandson. Remembered his name. And he loved that boy of yours, Rosa. Anyone with eyes could see it." Tears burned my throat. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because tomorrow, Mrs. Stephanie's calling a family meeting, and I think you should know what they're planning." He pulled a small USB drive from his pocket. "Dash cam footage from the week before Mr. Richard's accident. I kept copies because something felt wrong." I took the drive with shaking hands. "Marcus, we look out for each other, Rosa. That's how people like us survive in houses like this." He walked away, leaving me standing there with a USB drive that might contain evidence of murder and a laptop full of proof that Stephanie Whitmore had been stealing from her own family for years. My phone buzzed. A text from the house's internal system. "Staff meeting, 6 p.m. All attend. SW. Friday, 2 p.m. 68 hours until that money disappeared forever. 4 hours until Stephanie gathered the family." I needed to hear that conversation. Every single word. At 5:30 p.m., I slipped a voice recorder into the flower arrangement on Charles's old desk. The study hadn't changed since he passed away 3 months ago. Same mahogany furniture. Same oil paintings of ancestors who'd built the family fortune. Same smell of leather and old money. Stephanie had turned it into her command center, where she conducted business, made calls, held meetings that the help wasn't supposed to know about. The recorder was smaller than a lipstick tube, tucked deep in the white roses I'd arranged that morning. I'd bought it on Amazon 2 years ago when I first suspected something was wrong. $29 and free shipping. Best investment I'd ever made. "Dylan, honey, want to play in the garden?" I called out, keeping my voice light and casual. My son bounced down the stairs, completely unaware that his entire future hung in the balance of the next hour. We went outside, but I stayed close to the study window. It was cracked open. Stephanie always complained the room got stuffy. Through the evening air, I could hear car doors closing. Voices. Multiple people arriving. I pretended to push Dylan on the swing set while my heart hammered against my ribs. At 6:15 p.m., Stephanie's voice carried through the window, clear and cold. "Thank you all for coming on short notice. We have a situation that needs to be resolved before Monday's signing." I recognized the second voice immediately. Thompson, the family attorney. Smooth, practiced, expensive. "The documentation is ironclad, Stephanie. Charles was clearly experiencing cognitive decline when he made those unusual amendments to the trust. What about the paternity test? That was Margaret, Charles's sister, 72 years old and twice as greedy as her brother ever was. Already handled, Stephanie said. The lab will provide testimony that the sample was compromised. Besides, even if the test is legitimate, there's no legal obligation. Charles never formally recognized the child. My hands tightened on the swing's chain. Dylan laughed, asking me to push higher, completely innocent to the fact that these people were erasing his existence. Then a voice I didn't expect. "This doesn't feel right." William, Richard Jr.'s younger brother. I'd always thought of him as weak, a trust fund kid who spent more time at the country club than the family business. But right now, he sounded uncertain, maybe even guilty. "William." Stephanie's tone could have frozen water. "Do you want to discuss what's right? Should we talk about the $200,000 in gambling debts you've accumulated at Mohegan Sun? The debts that would destroy your reputation and your mother's legacy if they became public?" Silence. The swing creaked. Dylan called out for another push. "I thought not," Stephanie continued, papers rustling. "Here's what's going to happen. Monday at 10 a.m., we sign the transfer documents. The trust moves to the offshore account Thompson has established. By Tuesday morning, Rosa Martinez receives a visit from immigration authorities. An anonymous tip about an undocumented worker. Wednesday, she's processed for removal, and the child enters state custody under a temporary name while we sort out his background. My vision blurred. I stopped pushing the swing. "What happens to the boy long term?" Margaret asked, and she sounded more curious than concerned. Thompson answered this time. "Foster system. We'll ensure he's placed out of state, probably Massachusetts or Rhode Island. The paperwork will indicate no known relatives. Within 6 months, the connection to the Whitmore family becomes virtually untraceable. Problem solved. And the money?" William's voice was barely audible. "The $40 million is divided per our agreement," Stephanie said. 60% to me as Charles's primary heir, 20% to Margaret, 10% to you, William, and 10% to Thompson for facilitating everything. Clean, legal, permanent. "What about the DNA evidence?" Margaret pressed. "If that woman has copies, she's a housekeeper with an expired visa." Stephanie laughed. Actually laughed. "Who's going to believe her? By Wednesday afternoon she'll be in a detention center in Texas, and her son will be in state custody. Even if she talks, she'll be dismissed as a desperate immigrant making up stories." Dylan tugged my sleeve. "Mommy, you're not pushing anymore. Are you okay?" I looked down at my son, Richard's son, Charles's grandson, and forced a smile. "I'm fine, baby. Let's go inside and get dinner ready." As we walked toward the kitchen entrance, I heard Thompson say one final thing. "The transfer meeting has been moved up. Sunday, 3 p.m. at my office in Stamford. I want this done before anyone has time to question anything." My hands shook as I closed the door behind us. Sunday. They'd moved it to Sunday. That eliminated an entire day from my timeline. 19 hours, just gone. 68 hours had just become 49 hours. Mrs. Chen, the family's cook, looked up from chopping vegetables and saw my face. "Rosa, what's wrong?" I couldn't answer, couldn't speak, because I'd just heard them plan my deportation, my son's disappearance, and the theft of $40 million, and they were going to do it in less than 2 days. That night, after Dylan fell asleep, I finally opened Charles's letter. My hands trembled as I broke the seal on the envelope he'd given me 3 months ago. The first line made my blood run cold. "Rosa, if you're reading this, Stephanie already won, but I'm going to give you a way to win back." What followed would change everything. Friday, 11 p.m. Dylan was finally asleep. His small hand curled around mine like he knew I needed the comfort more than he did. I sat on my bed in the dim light of my bedside lamp, Charles's envelope resting in my lap. 3 months I'd kept it sealed, respecting a dead man's wishes. 3 months of wondering what secrets could be so important that he'd risk giving them to me during his final days. My hands trembled as I broke the seal. The paper was heavy, expensive, the kind Charles used for important business documents. His handwriting was shaky but deliberate, written by someone who knew time was running out but refused to let weakness stop him. "Rosa, if you're reading this, Stephanie already won. Or she thinks she has." I held my breath. "I need you to understand something. A year ago, I started noticing discrepancies in the family accounts. Small things at first, duplicate payments, vendors I didn't recognize, transfers that didn't match our usual patterns. I've run a successful company for 40 years. I know what fraud looks like. My accounting training kicked in. I'd seen those same patterns in my photographs. I hired a private investigator. What he found..." Charles's handwriting grew more agitated here, pressing hard into the paper. "Stephanie has been systematically stealing from the family trust since she married Richard. $5 million over 3 years, hidden in shell companies and offshore accounts. When Richard discovered what she was doing, he confronted her. He told me he was going to expose everything, divorce her, protect the family legacy. No, 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 no. 2 weeks later, my son's car went off I-95. The police said brake failure, tragic accident. But Rosa, I paid for an independent inspection after the funeral. Someone cut the brake lines, professionally, deliberately. The letter fell from my hands. I picked it up with shaking fingers. I couldn't prove it. Not legally. Not without destroying the family publicly. So I did the only thing I could. I pretended. I let Stephanie think she'd won. I let her believe the medication she was putting in my evening tea was working, that I was becoming confused and compliant. I let everyone think I was losing my mind. Oh my God! Charles had known. The whole time he'd known. But I was documenting everything. Recording conversations, copying files, building a case, and I made sure Dylan, my grandson, Rosa, because I know the truth about Richard and you, would be protected. I rewrote my will with a different attorney, one Stephanie doesn't know about. I had it notarized with 4 witnesses at St. Mary's Church. Father Michael has the original. My heart pounded so hard I could hear it in my ears. The new will explicitly recognizes Dylan as my legitimate grandson and heir to 40% of the estate. $40 million, Rosa. Money that Stephanie can't touch, can't steal, can't make disappear. But she doesn't know this will exists. She thinks the falsified version Thompson has is the real one. I pressed my hand to my mouth to keep from crying out and waking Dylan. Here's what I need you to understand. Stephanie didn't just steal money. She took my son from me. She took Richard from Dylan. She took years of joy from this family because of greed and ambition that knew no limits. And the medication she's been giving me, it's not helping my heart condition. It's causing it. Digitalis poisoning, slow and careful. Dr. Morrison, my personal physician, not the one Stephanie chose, has been secretly collecting blood samples. He knows what she's doing. The letter continued. By the time you read this, I'll be gone. She'll have succeeded in that. But she won't succeed in taking everything. There's a second envelope in Father Michael's safe at St. Mary's Church on Maple Avenue. Inside you'll find the original will, Dr. Morrison's medical affidavit with lab results proving poisoning, the private investigator's complete report on Richard's accident, and video testimony I recorded explaining everything. Tears streamed down my face. Rosa, you raised my grandson with dignity while my family treated you as invisible. Dylan has your integrity and Richard's kindness, the best of both of you. Don't let Stephanie destroy that. Don't let her win. The final paragraph was underlined twice. Father Michael knows to expect you. He has instructions to release everything to you specifically. But be careful. Stephanie is more dangerous than you realize. She's already taken 2 lives. Don't let yourself and Dylan become 3 and 4. The letter was signed, dated July 15th, just 3 weeks before Charles passed away. Below his signature were 4 witness signatures, including Father Michael's. And attached with a paperclip was a small silver key with a tag, St. Mary's Church, Deposit Box 247. I looked at my phone. Saturday, 12:30 a.m. 49 hours until Stephanie's meeting with Thompson. Less than 48 hours until they planned to destroy my life. But Charles had given me weapons, evidence, legal ammunition that even Stephanie's money couldn't fight. I just had to survive long enough to use them. My door handle rattled softly. Someone was testing to see if it was locked. In the hallway outside, I heard Stephanie's voice, quiet but unmistakable. Is she asleep? Yes, ma'am, Marcus responded. Turned her light off 20 minutes ago. Good. Keep an eye on her movements tomorrow. Something feels wrong. Footsteps retreated. I sat frozen. Charles's letter clutched to my chest, knowing that the next 48 hours would determine whether justice prevailed or whether Stephanie Whitmore got away with murder. Saturday morning, 6 a.m. I found Marcus in the garage, polishing the Mercedes that Stephanie would never appreciate. I know you hear everything they say in that car, I said quietly, closing the door behind me. I need your help. I need to save Dylan. Marcus stopped polishing, his shoulders tense. For a long moment, he didn't turn around. When he finally faced me, his eyes were tired, the kind of tired that comes from years of swallowing injustice. She threatened my son, he said simply. 3 years ago, Jaden got arrested at a protest in Hartford. Minor charge, dismissed after community service. But Mrs. Stephanie found out. Told me if I didn't keep her informed about Mr. Charles's condition, she'd make sure that arrest record followed Jaden everywhere. No college scholarships. No job opportunities. Just a black kid with a record. My heart broke for him. Marcus, I'm so sorry. Don't be sorry. Be ready to fight." He walked to his workbench and pulled out a USB drive from a locked drawer. "I've been recording conversations in that car for 2 years, and I've got dashcam footage from the week before Mr. Richards' accident, including video of Mrs. Stephanie meeting with a mechanic in Bridgeport, a mechanic who died from an overdose 6 months later." I took the drive with shaking hands. "Why didn't you go to the police?" "Same reason you didn't. Who believes the help over a wealthy white woman in Greenwich?" He met my eyes. "But together, with evidence, maybe we've got a shot." The garage door opened. Mrs. Chen stepped in, her usual calm expression replaced with determination. "I heard voices," she said in her precise English. She'd worked for the Whitmores for 20 years, longer than anyone. "Rosa, I know what's happening, and I want to help. Mrs. Chen, this is dangerous. They took my grandson's college fund." Her voice was steel. 5 years ago, Mr. Charles set up a trust for Andrew's education, $25,000. When he passed away, Stephanie said the paperwork was lost. That money disappeared, and my daughter had to take out loans. She pulled out her phone, scrolling through photos. "I'm 72 years old, but I'm not stupid about technology. My grandson taught me. I've been photographing documents when I cleaned Mrs. Stephanie's office, emails she printed and threw away, bank statements, meeting notes. She airdropped the files to my phone. Hundreds of them. The American dream," Mrs. Chen said bitterly. "Work hard, follow the rules, and people like her steal it anyway. Not anymore." We spent the next hour in the garage comparing evidence. Marcus's recordings matched my timeline. Mrs. Chen's documents filled in gaps I'd missed. Together, we had proof of embezzlement, fraud, and conspiracy. We just needed to connect it to Richard's death and Charles's poisoning. At 11 a.m., there was a knock on my bedroom door. I opened it to find William, Richard's younger brother, looking like he hadn't slept. His eyes were bloodshot and he smelled like whiskey. "I can't do this anymore," he whispered, glancing down the hallway. "I can't let her destroy that kid, my nephew. William, I know what Richard meant to do. He told me a week before he died. He was going to marry you, Rosa. He had a ring. He was going to stand up to the whole family and claim Dylan as his son." Tears streamed down his face, and I said nothing when his car went off the road. I knew something was wrong, and I said nothing because I was a coward. He pressed a piece of paper into my hand. "Stephanie's email password, her cloud storage login, everything I can give you. It won't bring Richard back, but maybe it'll give Dylan the future my brother wanted for him." Before I could respond, he added, "The Sunday meeting. It's been moved up. She called Thompson an hour ago. They're meeting tomorrow at 3 p.m. instead of 9 a.m. Monday. Said she wants to accelerate the timeline before anyone asks questions." My stomach dropped. We just lost another 18 hours. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because my father was a good man who made me promise to look out for family. And Dylan is family, whether Stephanie wants to admit it or not." He stepped back. "Be careful. She knows something's wrong. She hired a private investigator to follow you." He disappeared down the hallway. I looked at my phone. Saturday, 11:30 a.m. Less than 28 hours until Stephanie signed away Dylan's inheritance. Less than 48 hours until they planned to have me deported. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "This is Father Michael. Charles told me you'd need help. Come to the church tonight at 8 p.m. Back entrance. I have what you need, and I have someone you should meet." In the kitchen, Mrs. Chen was preparing lunch. Marcus was bringing the car around for Stephanie's spa appointment. William was probably already drinking to forget his guilt. And I was standing in the middle of a mansion built on oil money and family secrets, holding evidence that could bring it all down. Dylan found me in the hallway. "Mama, can we go to the park later?" I knelt down, looking into my son's innocent eyes that looked just like his father's. "Maybe tomorrow, baby. Today, Mama has something important to do, something that would change our lives forever." Saturday, midnight. Stephanie appeared in the kitchen doorway just as William stumbled away, finding me standing there with my heart racing. "Rosa, why is my brother-in-law in my kitchen at this hour?" I lowered my eyes immediately, falling into the role I'd perfected over 8 years. Submissive, invisible, harmless. Mr. William asked for aspirin, Mrs. Stephanie. He said he had a headache. I was just helping him. William, to his credit, played along. Migraine. Too much wine at the club. Rosa was kind enough to assist. Stephanie's eyes narrowed, studying my face for signs of deception. I kept my expression neutral, my posture defeated. Let her think she'd won. Let her believe the frightened immigrant housekeeper was exactly what she appeared to be. Fine. Get some rest. You'll need to do the shopping early tomorrow. I'm having guests for brunch. She turned to leave, then paused. And Rosa, don't forget your place in this house. Yes, Mrs. Stephanie. The moment she disappeared up the stairs, I released the breath I'd been holding. Saturday, 7 a.m. arrived with autumn sunlight streaming through my window. I dressed Dylan in his favorite jacket and headed to the kitchen with shopping bags. Every Saturday morning, same routine. Grocery run to the farmer's market on Greenwich Avenue. Stephanie never questioned it. Marcus was in the driveway, wiping down the Range Rover. He caught my eye and gave an almost imperceptible nod. Mrs. Rosa, let me help you with those bags. I'll give you a ride. It's cold this morning. Perfect. Natural. Nothing suspicious about the driver helping the housekeeper. We drove in silence until we were away from the mansion's security cameras. Then Marcus took a sharp left onto Maple Avenue instead of heading downtown. Father Michael is expecting you, he said. I'll keep Dylan entertained in the fellowship hall. Take your time. St. Mary's Church was a small stone building tucked between larger, more modern structures, the kind of place that had survived since the 1800s while Greenwich transformed around it. Father Michael waited at the back entrance, a man in his 70s with kind eyes and weathered hands. I'm Rosa Martinez. Charles Whitmore's final confession, I interrupted, desperate. He said you'd understand. Something shifted in Father Michael's expression. He opened the door wider. Come in, child. We don't have much time. His office smelled like old books and candle wax. He pulled a thick envelope from his desk safe, hands reverent, like he was handling something sacred. Charles came to me 6 weeks before he passed away. He wasn't confused, despite what his family claims. He was the clearest I'd seen him in years. Father Michael's voice cracked. He recorded everything. A video confession. He wanted to make sure the truth survived him. He turned on a laptop, and suddenly Charles Whitmore's face filled the screen. Thinner than I remembered, but his eyes were sharp, focused. My name is Charles Edward Whitmore. Today is July 8th, 2025. I am of sound mind and body, though my body won't last much longer. I'm being poisoned, slowly, deliberately, by my daughter-in-law, Stephanie Whitmore. I pressed my hand to my mouth. The video continued. I've pretended not to notice the medication she adds to my evening tea. Digitalis. Dr. Alan Morrison has been secretly collecting blood samples for months. The toxicology reports are enclosed with this testimony. Stephanie believes she's slowly causing my heart failure. She's right. Father Michael paused the video. Dr. Morrison is here. He wanted to meet you. An older man in his 60s stepped into the office. Distinguished, professional, the kind of doctor whose testimony would carry weight in court. Miss Martinez, I have documented proof of poisoning. Lab results from 3 independent facilities. Medical records showing the progression. And I'm willing to testify. He handed me a folder. Charles was my friend for 40 years. I won't let his death be in vain. By the time I left St. Mary's, I had everything. Charles's video confession, Dr. Morrison's forensic evidence, the original will naming Dylan as heir, and Father Michael's sworn affidavit as witness to Charles's sound mental state. Marcus drove us back through town, Dylan chattering happily about the cookies Father Michael's secretary had given him. My phone buzzed. A text from Mrs. Chen. Meeting tonight, 8 p.m. Your room. William is in. We plan strategy. At 8:00 p.m., my tiny bedroom became a war room. Marcus, Mrs. Chen, William, and me. An unlikely alliance of people the Whitmores had underestimated. Here's what we do, Marcus said, spreading papers across my bed. William wears a wire to tomorrow's meeting. My friend Detective Ramirez from Greenwich PD owes me a favor. He'll be listening. Mrs. Chen and I get Dylan to safety before things go down. I'll confess everything on tape, William said, his voice steady now, sober. About the coercion, the gambling debts she held over me, everything I know about Richard's death. Mrs. Chen pulled up documents on her tablet. And I'll deliver these financial records to the FBI field office in New Haven. Federal banking fraud. They'll have to investigate. What about the meeting tomorrow? I asked. Stephanie expects me to be here, quiet and afraid. Marcus smiled, a fierce, determined smile. Then you be here. Be quiet. Be afraid. Until the moment Detective Ramirez walks through that door with a warrant. My phone buzzed again. Stephanie. Family meeting tomorrow, 8:30 a.m., living room. All staff present for announcement. William's face went pale. She moved it again. That's 6.5 hours earlier than the lawyer meeting. She's going to force me to sign something before Thompson even arrives. 19 hours. We had 19 hours to execute a plan that would either free Dylan and me or destroy us completely. Then we move our timeline too, I said, feeling something hard and determined settle in my chest. Tomorrow morning, Stephanie Whitmore gets exactly what she deserves. It's just grown-up stuff, baby, I'd whispered, kissing his forehead. Tomorrow everything changes. For the better. I sat on my bed, organizing evidence into 3 manila envelopes. Each one represented a different path to justice. Insurance policies in case one avenue failed. Envelope 1. Greenwich Police Department. Marcus's dashcam footage, my recordings of threats, William's written confession about coercion. Detective Ramirez would receive this directly from Marcus tomorrow morning at 7 a.m., giving him time to prepare before the 8:30 meeting. Envelope 2. Federal Bureau of Investigation, New Haven Field Office. Mrs. Chen would deliver this personally at 8 a.m. Bank fraud documentation, evidence of interstate wire transfers, shell company records. Federal crimes that couldn't be swept under Greenwich's wealthy carpet. Envelope 3. Hartford Current investigative journalist Sarah Chen, Mrs. Chen's niece as it turned out. If everything else failed, if money and power tried to bury the truth, the media would be our nuclear option. At 2 a.m., doubt crept in like cold water. I stood at my window, looking out at the manicured gardens, the pool house, the guest cottage, all the trappings of a wealth I'd never truly be part of. What if they deported me anyway? What if Dylan grew up resenting me for destroying the only family he'd ever known, even if that family was built on lies and murder? My phone buzzed. A text from Father Michael. Psalm 37:6. He will make your righteous reward shine like the dawn, your vindication like the noonday sun. Have faith, Rosa. Charles believed in you. I wiped away tears and pulled out the small box I'd kept hidden for years. Inside was a simple silver ring, the one Richard had been carrying the day he died. The police had returned his personal effects to me, not to his family because his wallet had contained a photo of Dylan as a newborn, with "My son" written on the back. Richard had been ready to fight for us. Now it was my turn. At 3:00 a.m., my door opened silently. William slipped in, sober and scared. She knows something's wrong, he whispered urgently. She just called a private security firm. 2 guards arrive at 6 a.m. to ensure the meeting proceeds smoothly. Rosa, she's bringing muscle. My blood ran cold. What kind of security? The kind that makes problems disappear. The kind my father would never have allowed in this house. He handed me a business card. I called them back, pretending to confirm. They think I'm on her side. I told them the situation might require immigration intervention. Their words, not mine. Immigration intervention. They were planning to grab me during the meeting and hand me directly to ICE agents. We need to move faster, I said. Can Detective Ramirez come earlier? Already texted Marcus. He's pushing for 8:20 a.m. arrival instead of 8:30. William's hands shook. Rosa, I'm terrified. If this goes wrong, she'll destroy all of us. Then we make sure it doesn't go wrong. At 6 a.m. Sunday morning, I dressed Dylan in the special outfit Richard had given him 2 years ago. A small blazer and dress pants, clothes fit for a Whitmore heir. Dylan giggled, thinking it was for church. Mama, why am I so fancy? Because today, baby, you're going to meet your real family, the ones who love you. Mrs. Chen appeared at my door with a thermos of tea and remarkable composure for a woman about to help take down one of Greenwich's most powerful families. My daughter is parked 2 blocks away. The moment things start, Dylan comes with me to her car. We drive to my niece Sarah's house in Hartford. He'll be safe while you do what needs to be done. Marcus arrived at 6:30, his face grim. Ramirez is coming, but he can only be here by 8:15. The security guards just pulled up. Former cops, both of them. They're searching the house for security threats. My laptop. My evidence. I'd been so careful, but Mrs. Chen has everything, William said quickly. She uploaded it all to a secure cloud last night. Even if they find your laptop, it doesn't matter. The evidence is already with the FBI and the police. At 7:45 a.m., Stephanie's voice echoed through the house. Everyone to the living room. Now. This was it. The moment 8 years of silence, fear, and careful documentation would either vindicate us or destroy us. I picked up Dylan, holding him close. Remember, baby, no matter what happens, your papa loved you. Your grandpa protected you. And your mama will always fight for you. You're scaring me, Mama. Don't be scared. Be brave. Like your papa. We walked down the grand staircase together. A Mexican housekeeper and her 5-year-old son, about to challenge an empire built on oil money, lies, and murder. In the living room, Stephanie waited with her lawyer, her security guards, and a smile that promised destruction. But behind me came Marcus, Mrs. Chen, and William. And outside, Detective James Ramirez was pulling into the driveway with a warrant and a recorder. The checkmate was in motion. Sunday, 8:25 a.m. I walked into the living room carrying everything I'd need. Charles's letter in my pocket, my phone recording in my apron, and 8 years of righteous anger carefully controlled beneath a mask of submission. Stephanie sat in Charles's favorite chair like a queen on a stolen throne. Thompson, the family lawyer, stood beside her with his briefcase. Margaret perched on the sofa, already counting her share of $40 million in her head. And 2 security guards flanked the doorway, ex-cops with dead eyes and thick arms. Then the door opened behind me. Marcus walked in, followed by Mrs. Chen. Then William, his face pale but determined. And finally, Father Michael, in his priest's collar, carrying a leather portfolio. Stephanie's smile faltered. "What is this?" I said family meeting, not Mrs. Whitmore. I'm Detective James Ramirez, Greenwich Police Department. A man in his 40s stepped through the front door, badge displayed. Please remain seated. We have some questions about your late husband's death. The room froze. This is absurd, Stephanie said, recovering quickly. Officer, this woman, she pointed at me, is here illegally. She's making false accusations because she knows she's about to be deported. I have security here to escort her off the property. Actually, ma'am, you don't. Detective Ramirez nodded to the guards. Gentlemen, you're dismissed. This is now an active investigation. The guards looked at Stephanie, who nodded sharply. They left, and I could breathe again. Now, Ramirez continued, we have some interesting evidence to discuss. Starting with this, he held up a tablet showing Marcus's dashcam footage. Video of Mrs. Whitmore meeting with mechanic Dennis Cole on October 3, 2023, 1 week before Richard Whitmore Jr.'s fatal accident. Stephanie's face went white. That proves nothing. I was getting an estimate for brake work on a car that had been serviced the day before. Marcus's voice was steady, strong. Funny thing about that dash camera, it also records audio. Would you like to hear what you and Mr. Cole discussed? How much you paid him? How he promised the problem would be solved by week's end? You're the help. You can't. I'm a citizen with evidence of a crime, Marcus said firmly, and I've been collecting it for 2 years. Father Michael stepped forward, opening his portfolio. Mrs. Whitmore, I'm here as executor of Charles Whitmore's true last will and testament, properly notarized and witnessed in accordance with Connecticut law. Would you like me to read the relevant section? Thompson tried to intervene. Father, the will we have on record is a forgery. William's voice shook but held. I watched you create it, Thompson. You dictated it to me, told me to sign as witness, promised me it would protect the family. But it doesn't protect the family. It protects thieves and murderers. William, shut your mouth, Margaret hissed. No. William pulled out his phone, hands trembling. I've been recording this whole conversation, just like I recorded your planning session Friday night, just like I recorded Thompson coaching you on how to falsify Dad's mental competency evaluation. Detective Ramirez's expression hardened. Mr. Thompson, you're aware that fabricating legal documents is— I want my lawyer, Thompson said immediately. Excellent idea. Ramirez turned to Stephanie. You might want one too, because we also have testimony from Dr. Alan Morrison regarding digitalis poisoning. An older gentleman I recognized from Charles's medical appointments stepped into the room. I've been Charles Whitmore's personal physician for 30 years. When he came to me 8 months ago complaining of symptoms inconsistent with his known heart condition, I began secretly running additional tests. Toxicology confirmed digitalis poisoning, a medication Mrs. Whitmore had access to, but which was never prescribed to Mr. Whitmore. This is ridiculous. Stephanie stood, her composure cracking. You're all conspirators. This Mexican woman has manipulated all of you with lies about some bastard child. Dylan is not a bastard. Father Michael's voice cut through the room like a blade. He's Charles Whitmore's legitimate grandson, recognized as such in a legal document signed by Charles, witnessed by myself and 3 other community members, and filed with the church records. The DNA test you commissioned yourself confirms paternity. I finally found my voice. You wanted me silent. You wanted me invisible. You threatened me with deportation, with losing my son, with disappearing into the system. My voice grew stronger. But you forgot something. You forgot that we're not actually invisible. We see everything. We hear everything. And we remember. Mrs. Chen stepped forward with her tablet, including financial records showing $5 million embezzled over 3 years. I have emails, bank statements, and transfers you thought were permanently deleted. Stephanie's lawyer facade shattered completely. You're all going to regret this. I have connections. You had connections, Detective Ramirez corrected. Past tense, because the FBI is currently executing a warrant at Thompson's office, and federal agents are very interested in your offshore accounts. The sound of additional vehicles pulling up outside made everyone turn. Through the window, I saw 2 black SUVs with FBI emblazoned on the sides. Stephanie Whitmore, Greenwich socialite and murderer, finally understood that her money couldn't save her this time. The FBI agents moved through the Whitmore mansion like they owned it, and for the moment, they did. Special Agent Lisa Chen, no relation to Mrs. Chen, though they shared the same sharp intelligence, led the investigation. Mrs. Stephanie Whitmore, we have a federal warrant for your arrest on charges of bank fraud, wire fraud, and conspiracy to commit murder. Mr. Thompson, you're also under arrest as an accessory. Stephanie's last desperate card. That woman is illegal. Ms. Martinez has already been granted a U visa as a victim and witness to serious crimes, Agent Chen said coolly. Her immigration status is protected under federal law. Try again. I stood there, Dylan pressed against my side, watching the woman who'd threatened to destroy us get handcuffed in her own living room. The irony wasn't lost on anyone. Thompson tried one final maneuver, pulling out his phone. I'm deleting the— Marcus was faster. Already too late. Mrs. Chen backed up your entire server last night. Every email, every document, every financial record. The FBI has had it since 8:00 a.m. Mrs. Chen allowed herself a small smile. My grandson taught me about cloud storage. Very useful technology. The arrests happened in swift succession. Stephanie in handcuffs, screaming about lawyers and injustice, the rich person's version of denial. Thompson trying to negotiate even as agents read him his rights. Margaret attempting to flee out the back door, only to find more federal agents waiting. William stood watching his family implode, tears streaming down his face. When it was over, he walked over to me. I'm so sorry. For everything. For being too weak to stop this years ago. He knelt down to Dylan's level. Hey, buddy. I'm your Uncle William. Your dad, Richard. He was my big brother, and he was the best person I knew. I should have protected you better. Dylan looked up at me confused. I nodded, and he tentatively hugged William. It's okay, Dylan whispered. Mama says everyone makes mistakes. By 11:00 a.m., the Hartford Courant had broken the story online. Greenwich heiress arrested in murder for inheritance scheme. Immigrant housekeeper's evidence cracks case wide open. The headline went viral within an hour. My phone started ringing. Journalists, immigration attorneys offering pro bono help, advocacy organizations wanting to tell my story. I turned it off. This wasn't about fame. This was about Dylan getting the life his father wanted for him. Father Michael approached me in the now quiet living room. The church has a small cottage behind the rectory. It's yours for as long as you need it. You and Dylan shouldn't stay here. Thank you, Father. But I need to know, will Dylan actually get his inheritance, or will the courts tie this up for years? A new voice answered, not if I can help it. An elegant woman in her 60s walked in carrying a briefcase. I'm Judge Patricia Morrison, retired. Dr. Morrison's wife and Charles Whitmore's goddaughter. I've already filed an emergency petition with Hartford Superior Court to place the trust under independent administration and recognize Dylan as primary beneficiary. But Stephanie will fight it. From jail? Judge Morrison smiled. Her assets are frozen. Thompson's disbarred by end of week. Margaret's cooperating with prosecutors in exchange for immunity. There's no one left to fight. By Friday, Dylan will be legally recognized as Charles Whitmore's heir. The community response was overwhelming. By afternoon, Latino organizations from across Connecticut organized a vigil at St. Mary's Church. Immigration lawyers from Yale Law School offered to help other domestic workers facing similar situations. The Greenwich community, surprisingly, rallied. Apparently, even old money had limits when it came to murder. Marcus found me on the back patio, watching Dylan play in the garden one last time. My son, Jaden, wants to meet you, he said. Says you're a hero. Wants to study law now, help people like us. I'm not a hero, Marcus. I was just tired of being afraid. That's exactly what makes you one. Mrs. Chen announced she was retiring. At 72, she'd earned it. But she agreed to become co-director of something William proposed, the Charles and Richard Whitmore Foundation, funded by part of Dylan's trust, dedicated to providing legal support and resources for immigrant domestic workers in Connecticut. My father would have wanted this, William said, and my brother definitely would have. 2 weeks later, we appeared before Judge Margaret Sullivan in Hartford. The proceeding was brief, formal, and life-changing. The court recognizes Dylan Martinez as Dylan Whitmore Martinez, legitimate grandson of Charles Edward Whitmore, with all rights and privileges thereto. Judge Sullivan looked at me. Ms. Martinez, you've shown extraordinary courage. This court commends you. Outside the courthouse, Dylan tugged my sleeve. Mama, am I really a Whitmore now? You always were, baby. Now everyone else just knows it too. That evening, I visited the cemetery where Charles and Richard rested side by side. Dylan placed flowers on both graves. Thank you, I whispered, both of you, for believing we were worth fighting for. The American dream, I'd learned, wasn't handed to you. Sometimes you had to fight like hell to claim it. 3 months later, I stood in the hallway of the federal courthouse in New Haven, waiting for my citizenship ceremony. The irony wasn't lost on me. The woman they'd threatened to deport was about to become an American citizen through an EB-1 visa, granted for extraordinary ability in civic participation and public service. Apparently, taking down a multi-million-dollar fraud scheme qualified. But first, there was one more revelation waiting. Rosa, a woman's voice, tentative but warm. I turned to see someone who looked hauntingly familiar. She had Richard's eyes. I'm Emily Whitmore, she said. Richard's cousin. I saw everything in the news. We need to talk. We sat in a quiet corner of the courthouse cafe while Dylan colored with the crayons Emily had thoughtfully brought. I was exiled from the family 10 years ago, Emily explained. I married Marcus. Different Marcus. My husband is black and the Whitmores didn't approve. Charles was the only one who stayed in touch, secretly. She pulled out an envelope, worn and carefully preserved. Richard gave me this a week before he died. He said, if anything happens to me, find Rosa. Make sure she gets this. My hands shook as I opened it. Richard's handwriting, familiar from the notes he used to leave me during our brief time together. Rosa, If you're reading this, I didn't keep my promise. I'm sorry. You deserved better than secret moments and hidden affection. You deserved the wedding, the public acknowledgement, the life we planned. Tears blurred the words. I was going to propose on your birthday. The ring is with Emily. She'll know how to find you. I was going to stand in front of my entire family and tell them the truth, that I love you, that Dylan is my son, and that their approval doesn't matter because you're my family now. I pressed the letter to my chest, sobbing quietly. There's more, Emily said gently, placing a small velvet box on the table. Inside was a simple, beautiful engagement ring. He bought this 2 weeks before the accident. He showed me, told me his whole plan. He was so happy, Rosa. The happiest I'd ever seen him. Dylan looked up from his coloring. Is that for Mama? Emily smiled through her own tears. Your daddy wanted your mama to have it. To remember that he chose her, that he chose both of you. At 2 p.m., I stood with 40 other people from 37 countries, raising my right hand before Judge Patricia Morrison, who'd specifically requested to oversee this ceremony. I hereby declare, on oath, that I absolutely and entirely renounce and abjure all allegiance and fidelity to any foreign prince, potentate, state, or sovereignty. The words felt sacred, not because I was rejecting Mexico. I would always carry Oaxaca in my heart, but because I was claiming the right to belong somewhere without fear. When it was over, Judge Morrison handed me my naturalization certificate personally. Welcome home, Miss Martinez. Or should I say, welcome home, Rosa Martinez, American citizen. Dylan waved a small American flag Emily had given him, not understanding the magnitude but feeling the joy. The reception afterward was small but perfect. Marcus and his son, Jaden, now a first-year law student at UConn. Mrs. Chen with her daughter and grandson, Andrew, who'd gotten a full scholarship to NYU thanks to the foundation. William, sober for 90 days and working as a volunteer coordinator for the Whitmore Foundation. Father Michael and Dr. Morrison. Emily and her husband, my new family. What does America mean to you? A reporter asked, the question every new citizen gets asked. I looked at Dylan, wearing his little suit, holding his flag, grinning with missing front teeth. It means my son can say his full name with pride. Dylan Whitmore Martinez. It means that justice, no matter how delayed, finds its way home. It means that dignity isn't given by others. It's claimed by courage. 6 months after that, Stephanie was sentenced to 25 years for conspiracy to commit murder and wire fraud. Thompson got 10 years and was permanently disbarred. Margaret received probation and had to return every dollar she'd taken. The Whitmore mansion was sold. I didn't want to live there. Too many ghosts, too many memories of feeling invisible. Instead, I bought a warm, welcoming house in Norwalk with a backyard where Dylan could play and friends could gather. Dylan started kindergarten at a school where nobody whispered about the housekeeper's kid. His teacher called him brilliant, curious, kind, words that would have made Richard proud. On what would have been Richard's 35th birthday, Dylan and I visited the cemetery. My son, our son, placed flowers on his father's grave. I wish I knew you, Dylan said quietly. He knew you, baby, and he loved you before you were even born. We walked back to the car, hand in hand. The American dream, I'd learned, wasn't about mansions or money. It was about the freedom to fight for justice, the courage to speak truth to power, the right to exist without fear, and the knowledge that love, real love, outlasts death, wealth, and silence. We'd won.